Hello everyone. Today let's talk about a very beautiful literary device, foreshadowing. 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 It's a literary device in which a writer gives an advance hint of what is to come later in the story. See, in this whole page, the words, phrases, those are written with red pen. They are important words of concern. If you remember just those words, it means you can understand foreshadowing very well. You can explain foreshadowing very well. Just remember these words and phrases with red color. For example, let's talk about them first. An advance hint. So foreshadowing means a kind of an advance hint, a hint that is given prior to the narrative. Appears at the beginning, generally that happens. Upcoming events, which talks of upcoming events, which predicts upcoming events. Through what? Through character dialogues, plot events, and change in set. And then other word that is here, title. Sometimes title also suggests, predicts the upcoming events. What is the work of that? It creates suspense. It adds dramatic tension. That is the function of foreshadowing. It creates suspense, and that suspense ultimately leads one to be more interested knowing the story further. Dramatic tension, again, for reaching climax and anticlimax. Okay? So, foreshadowing is a literary device in which a writer gives an advance hint, something, a clue, a kind of clue that is given of what is to come later in the story. The whole story will be narrated later, will be told later, but some hints are there through which you can trace the story. It often, or often, both are correct pronunciations, it often appears at the beginning of a story or chapter. It can be in the beginning. Generally, it is in the beginning of the story or the chapter. It helps the reader develop expectations that about the upcoming events. So, the reader starts having expectations by his or her own understanding that what is going to be the next event. It may be implemented. See, this is a device and this is implemented by the writer in different ways. It can be through character dialogues. Suppose a character is saying something, and just by tracing the words, the dialogue of the character, you can trace the story. See, a very fine example, that is also the example of verbal irony in Macbeth. when Macbeth says to Banquo not to miss the feast that he is going to organize. Banquo says, I will not. Banquo does not complete the sentence. He says, I will not. That can be interpreted in two different ways. One is the simple meaning that he is saying, I will not miss the feast. The second one, if we see the foreshadow in his words, then we can analyze it as if he knows that he is going to be murdered, and that's why he says, I will not come. So come is hidden here. I will not come. So it can be implemented through character dialogues, through plot events. Different events, those are taking place in a plot. Just by seeing the events, just by seeing the setting, you can understand that. For example, if in a story or in a movie, if you perceive a very vast palace there, a castle there, having no man or woman, no person there, no living things there, that seems quite mysterious. And you start comprehending that some mystery is going to take place, or some mystery is going to be revealed, or whether you can perceive that some Gothic elements are there. Gothic, you understand? Gothic romance, Gothic genre, the genre in which we have, horror things. Horror is there. Something concerned with ghost and all sort of things. So setting, many times setting reveals many things. If we talk of plot of events, generally, see, this foreshadowing is very well understood through watching movies. In most of the movies of 90s, if you see, if the movie starts with the description of a happy family, everybody is enjoying their life, one's life, they all are happy, they all seem satisfied. Then through your experience, you can see the foreshadow of the upcoming upheaval, of the upcoming turmoil in their life. You know that this happiness is being shown just for intensifying the bad situations, those are going to take place. The bad incidents, those are going to take place. Okay. Even the title of a work or a chapter can act as a clue that suggests what is going to happen. See, for example, if we talk of the famous novel of Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice. You know what was the initial name of that work? It was First Impressions. Later she changed its title as Pride and Prejudice. So when you perceive these two words, pride and prejudice, you can think. You can think of the concern of the novelist. You can think of the concern of the story. That there might be some characters there in the novel who are governed through their pride and prejudice, and ultimately knitting the incidents of the plots. And the same that we perceive in the novel itself, how the male protagonist Fitzwilliam Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet, the female protagonist, both are governed through their pride and prejudice. So it happens sometimes title of a work or a chapter can act as a clue that suggests what is going to happen. Foreshadowing in fiction. Fiction means it can be novel, drama, or short story. Generally, fiction nowadays are used for novel. Foreshadowing in fiction creates an atmosphere of suspense in a story. Of course, this foreshadowing. See, when this suspense is created, when something is told to you but not completely. See, when somebody says कुछ कहना है, and then for few moments he or she does not say anything, and you are waiting for the next message and your heartbeat is intensified. क्या करना है? What is, what kind of message we are going to get further from that person? Suspense. Of course, you know that something is being told, something is going to be told, but what is that thing? You are unaware, and at that moment you try to predict. I hope she is going to tell this thing, he is going to tell that thing. Prediction. And that prediction is very much concerned with foreshadowing. So foreshadowing in fiction creates an atmosphere of suspense in a story, so that the readers are interested and want to know more. See, they want to know more means they are knowing something, so they want to add something in it. So they become interested. Okay? It adds dramatic tension to a story. And that dramatic tension ultimately leads the story to the climax or anticlimax. Moreover, foreshadowing can make extraordinary and bizarre events appear credible. See, sometimes these things happen. You are watching a movie, you are reading a novel, you are reading a drama. Some bizarre things are taking place. Bizarre means something that seems illogical. Why is this happened? Why is this happening? You are uncomfortable with the situation created in the fiction. You want to know, what is this? What is wrong with this man? What is wrong with this idea? So at that time, this foreshadowing, just the hint that you get through some event or dialogues or setting, you try to comprehend, you try to find out the logic in that illogical thing that seems to be illogical. So it makes the events credible. Credible means something on which you can believe. Some events are predicted in order to make the audience feel anticipated for them. Sometimes when we see, those bizarre kind of things uh, in a fiction or in a movie, we see, what is this? I'm not getting it. And what you do? You just make the movie start. You just use your pause button. Interest. So for maintaining the interest, for making you feel anticipated. See, when you see something, when you read something, there is a need of anticipation, whether you are comprehending the things and situations taking place or not. If you are unable to anticipate, then you don't find any interest in resuming the same task further. Okay, let's talk of some fine examples. We'll talk of some examples first, then we'll talk of some literary examples further. Just listen the lines very carefully. You will understand, and you by yourself can predict. You by yourself can foreshadow the things and situations going to take place. The final graveyard flower is blooming. Think about the situation. Graveyard, Kabristan. Graveyard flower is blooming. So in a graveyard, the flower is blooming. And its smell drifts through the house. And think up, just imagine the situation. There is a graveyard and the flower that is there, it is blooming, and smell. Just find that smell not as an abstract notion but as a concrete, like a smoke. Okay, that smells coming out of that flower, it goes to their house. So from graveyard to the house, speaking gently the names of their dead. And when that smell, that odor moves into their house, that smell ultimately makes people reminded of their dead ones. Dead ones, the people who were alive some year or time before, but now they are dead. So this is the line. The final graveyard flower is blooming, and its smell drifts through the house, speaking gently the names of their dead. So whenever you find graveyard being depicted, the simple thing, the first thing that you are being reminded of is what? Death. So, foreshadows death. Death is being foreshadowed, that someone else is going to die. Okay? Let's see another example. An old man opens his drawer. An old man is in his flat, and is opening the drawer. For what? For fetching some magnifying glass. And what does he see there? He sees a revolver there. Instead of glass, he sees a revolver. So What is the significance of that revolver there? That foreshadows warning. That as if some dangerous event is going to take place. And the third one that I love very much. Just listen the lines very carefully. I observed devices, the symbols in the books, to indicate the written future. So there is a child, and he says that from the very beginning, from the very, my childhood, there was a habit in me that I used to observe devices, symbols in the books to indicate the written future. And what is that written future that he finds? That he is going to become a writer. Why? Because a writer has such kind of interest. This is the characteristics of a writer. Clear? So it foreshadows writer. Let's move to literary examples. They are also very beautiful. The first one is taken from Romeo and Juliet, the famous tragedy by William Shakespeare. This dialogue is taken from Act 2, Scene 2. And it goes like this. Life were better ended by their hate than death prorogued wanting of thy love. So here we have balcony scene where we find Juliet being frightened that her kinsman, her people, will fetch Romeo someday and they may kill him. So through this dialogue, he says, it's better for me to be murdered by them because of their hate as soon as possible if I am unable to get your love. I don't want to live enough without getting your love. It's better for me to get your love and being killed than to live a longer life without getting your love. So this is the dialogue through which he tells Juliet. Romeo is telling Juliet. And ultimately the same happened. He gets her love and ultimately dies for her love too. Okay? Other fine example that is from The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by S.T. Coleridge. Here we find the supernatural description of a lady, or you can say supernatural embodiment of the calamity, the disaster that is going to take place. And that disaster is being described in the form of a lady. What kind of lady she is? Her lips were red. So why is her lips red? Not because of lipstick that she has used. but because of the blood that she is going to suck. Blood. As you find, by seeing her, what happened? Her lips were red. Her looks were free. Why free? She doesn't care about anyone because she herself is embodiment of death. Who thicks man's blood with cold. See how beautifully Coleridge has used this adjective as a verb here. Who thicks man's blood. Thick, that is an adjective. Ghana, mota, for making the blood frozen. So thick is an adjective and being used as a verb by Coleridge. This is example of foregrounding. If you read stylistics and linguistics, you will find this technical term there, foregrounding, where a writer violates the rule of the traditional grammar or language. Okay, poets have poetic license for this. They can violate such rules. Okay, so who thicks man's blood with cold? Just by perceiving her, just by viewing her, just by seeing her, their blood seems to be frozen. So this is what they are perceiving. Nobody has died till now, but just by the description of that embodiment of death, you will find that is the foreshadow of the upcoming deaths. Not only death, but death of all the crew members. CREW. Crew, you understand? All the people present on the ship. So I hope now concept of foreshadowing is very practically clear before you. Let's talk of some other terms as well. Sometimes we can be confused with those in respect of foreshadowing. So we must be very clear regarding them. The first is red herring. REDHERRING. Red herring. Generally, if you see this process of red herring, that is mostly done by the children to divert the attention of their parents and elders from the important events. For example, if there is a day announced when the result is going to be declared, and when the child comes to his or her house, and when the parents are asking, how much have you scored in the examination, the child will start talking of something else. Mama, you know this happened. Papa, you know that happened. That boy started fighting with that person. See, means they start diverting your attention from the important things. That is called red herring. This red herring is a technique, a skill. And this skill or the technique is also used by writers. Red herring is a hint. See, this is also a hint, like foreshadowing. That is why sometimes people get confused with this. A hint that is designed to mislead the audience. So this mislead is very important here. It means a red herring mislead means does not lead in right direction. But what does foreshadowing do? It leads in right direction. So that is the basic difference. Foreshadowing only hints at a possible outcome with the confinement of a narrative and purposely leads readers in right direction. So that is the basic difference. And the other one that is also very important, narrative technique, the opposite of flashback. I hope you understand what flashback is. A very fine example of flashback that we see. We have watched Bahubali first, but there we saw that Bahubali is being killed by Katappa. That is actually the flashback. Sorry, that is actually the flash forward that we have watched. Why Katappa killed Bahubali? For knowing that reason, we went into flashback in Bahubali 2. So that is flashback. Okay. So flash forward, the spelling can be written with a hyphen or without a hyphen in between both words. Flash forward, more formally known as prolapses. See, such terms come in the examination. They ask for such things. What is prolapses? So you know flash forward very well, but you are unaware of prolapses. So mind it, prolapses means flash forward is a scene that temporarily takes the narrative forward in the time from the current point of the story. So it makes you shifted from present to the future. So chronological shift is there that we don't have in foreshadowing. We don't shift. We just perceive the things in present. Those can predict about future. But here we have a shift in future. Okay? The current point of the story in literature, film, television, and other media, we find such things in these media. It occurs when scenes are shown out of chronological order. So chronological sequence is not there. Okay? In foreshadowing, we don't disturb the chronological sequence. But when we use narrative devices, narrative techniques like flashback or flash forward, we make the chronological sequence disturbed. And that's why the narrative becomes non-linear. You understand non-linear? Linear means from beginning to the end. Non-linear means we have, a very zigzag kind of thing. We don't know which incident took place earlier and which is taking place later. All is very much blended and mixed. Okay? I hope now you have, understood the concept of red herring and flash forward as well in comparison to foreshadowing. Thank you.